just give it another minute and then we'll get started. Let's check here. Let's see. Okay. We've got about 80 folks on the call. That's great. There were about 180 registered, so I'm sure more people will pour in. But in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. So because of the size of the audience, most of this meeting is going to be a one-way discussion tonight, a little less of a community discussion until the end. But please, I do want everybody's input and help. But you're going to have to suffer listening to me drone on for most of this meeting. And so I'm sharing the format of the meeting, the logistics in the chat. I'll do it again for anybody that's just joined. So everybody's going to be on mute until the end. So at the end, we'll have a Q&A session where you can raise your hand or submit a question in the chat. So please jot down any thoughts you have along the way and save it to the end. The meeting is being recorded for neighbors who are unable to attend. So if you're not comfortable showing your image publicly, please turn your camera off. I prefer to have camera on meetings. I like to see who I'm talking to. So I'd encourage you to do that. But it is being recorded and it likely will be shared out on social media. So just keep that in mind. So there's a link that I'll share again at the end that's in the chat, which is the path for you to go ahead and volunteer. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. First, let me just tell you quickly what the agenda is for this evening. So just a quick intro, what's the goal of this group and of this meeting? I'm going to go through a little neighborhood update, what's happening in our neighborhood. Then I want to share a 3-part action plan that hopefully you will buy into and appreciate. And then I want to share with how you can help us execute that plan and how you can get involved. And then lastly, we will have time for questions. I know passions and frustrations are high right now. So hopefully this meeting gives us a way to channel our energy. So I'm going to start off just by introducing myself. Who the heck am I and why am I here? So I'm a 30-year San Francisco resident. My name is Mark Dietrich. I've been in the Richmond for 15 years. I live at 16th and Clement. I'm a dad. I'm a public school parent. And I started getting involved in my block, in my neighborhood, a little over about a year and a half ago when there was a kind of a clear uptick in quality of life issues in the neighborhood. So I live on the same block as the Walgreens on 17th and Geary, so I probably don't need to say any more than that if you've been in that Walgreens recently. So just for a little bit of background, I'm not trying to promote myself or toot my own horn here, but just for background. So I've led a couple neighborhood trash cleanups. They've been really successful and quite large the past couple months. I've worked closely with the homeless outreach team to help coordinate with a few neighbors to find shelter for a few high visibility chronic homeless people in my immediate neighborhood. But I'm probably most known in social media in the neighborhood for helping lead the effort to remove the kind of the drug-ridden homeless encampment that was next to the Alexandria Theater on Geary back in August, which, I think there were a few others in the Richmond as well that had become kind of public health and public safety hazards for our neighbors and for the occupants. And so all of those occupants were offered shelter beds and one occupant turned out to be a Megan's Law sex offender, and he was arrested for repeated parole violations. So the folks on 18th Avenue know me well, there by the theater. So I'm pretty vocal, and frequently post on Nextdoor, which is probably where a lot of you know me. For if your neighborhood kind of coincides with where I'm with my next door reach. And so that's a little bit about me. And so lastly, for me, the uptick in burglaries here in our neighborhood, it's not really for me about property or bicycles getting stolen. It's really more about being violated, and not feeling safe or secure in our own homes. So I've had a few break-in attempts of my home, my garage. Luckily, they were thwarted with some simple prevention tools, which kind of is what got me into this, thinking about how I could help others. I know many of you on the call here have not been so lucky. Back in October of 2019, I started keeping track of reported break-ins and burglaries posted on Nextdoor. And I made a list, and I was only able to do it for a couple weeks before I was totally overwhelmed, because it was happening at least one or two every single day, and I just couldn't keep track. So once the list got to like 60 or 70, I was like, okay, this is clearly a problem. So this meeting tonight is about it's about action. It's not just about debating and agreeing and nodding our heads about how bad things are. It's not about pointing fingers at our elected officials or about city policy. Simply put, I'm looking for help. I'm looking for your help. Help from those of you who are tired of sitting still. You want to stand up and do something to help stop this kind of nightly burglary crime wave. So please, I ask that you just hear me out, and then decide if you want to join this effort, if you want to join, kind of create a team here. If not, that's fine. Thanks for listening. Have a nice evening. I'm not a neighborhood affiliation or organization. I'm just a neighbor, and people on the call here are just neighbors who care about safety in the neighborhood. So I want to listen to ideas and to voices, but I do have to say this isn't a public committee. So I have a plan. I'm going to share it with you. It's not perfect. I think it's pretty good, and I'd like to ask for your help to make it better and to execute it. So that's me. That's who I am. So the next question is, who are you? And so there's currently about 93 people on this call. And so don't worry, we're not going to go through and do introductions. That would take forever. So I know many of you have been victims of break-ins and burglary already. If not, most of the people on this call probably know someone, a neighbor who's been burglarized in the past 6 months. So I've been posting this sign-up sheet online for this group for a little over a month now. And here's a map of the 300 people, the 300 neighbors who signed up and said, essentially, by signing up, I want to help. I want to do something. So I wanted to share this map. It's not exactly where people live, but it's all within a block. I wanted to share it for two reasons, to make 2 points. First, this burglary wave is pervasive across the entire neighborhood. There's not a corner that's more safe or less safe. It's happening everywhere. And second, if you look at this picture, we have an army of people who are fed up and fired up. And right now, this is really the only advantage that we have over those people that are breaking in to our homes. So leveraging this map is really the only way that I think we can make a difference. So out of the 300 people that signed up, and I know there's people on this call who haven't signed up yet. Fine, we look forward to having you sign up. 44 of them said that they were handy and that they could help people, they could help neighbors secure their homes. 56 of them said that they have, marketing and communication skills to help us spread the word. 109 of them wanted to help start a neighborhood watch on their block. 150, half of them, said they were willing to write letters, make calls to city officials. I know, and I've heard from some of you have been doing that already. And then 170 of these folks stood up and said, hey, I just want to spread the word by talking to neighbors. So we've got an army of folks here, and I think that's part of our strength. So what is this meeting all about? What's the goal of this meeting? So simply put, I'd like to fight back against burglaries simply by helping people secure their homes across our neighborhood. Lots of neighbors, oops, sorry about that. Lots of neighbors are unaware of what's happening until it's too late. People continue to be surprised. They don't know how people are breaking in. They don't know where to turn. And many people feel powerless to stop it. Probably all of you as well. By yourselves, I think we all feel powerless. So what I'd like to do is give neighbors a path of action. People want to do something. So let's tell them what they can do. Let's show them what they can do and maybe even help them to do it. So I know that, in the past week, there's been a spike in violent crime in San Francisco, especially elderly residents. And several of you reached out to me on this topic. Are we going to talk about that? And so my response is that our efforts here are kind of correlated. They might help, but this group is not focusing on that violence. I just want to focus on the burglary and the break-ins. Ideally, if we're successful, there'll be some residual public safety benefits from some of the things that we want to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit later about what else we're not going to be addressing. But first, I want to take you through really quickly here what we know, kind of the state of the neighborhood. A lot of you probably know some of this already, but if you don't, hopefully you can learn something here in the next couple of minutes. So what do we know? We know that they're called hot prowl. I've been talking extensively with the SFPD and dozens of victims, and we estimate that nightly there's 2 to 5 break-ins in the Richmond district every night. They're called hot prowls because people are home when the break-ins occur. The police think that there's a group of roughly 30 professional burglars who work in small groups of 2 or 3 people. They usually have a lookout. While 1 or 2 are breaking in, somebody's on the, standing aside, watching out for anyone that sees them. Most of the break-ins are happening, 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., of course, at night. They're more common during bad weather, like tonight. I think it's raining right now. They are actually casing and targeting homes, specifically those with bicycles in their garages. So they're actually, they think they're following people who are riding bikes, casing and watching their homes. They're scouting garages, the contents of garages, by peering in through mail slots, the vents in the bottom of the garages. And if they can see things, it's way more likely that your garage will be broken into. So, about, 20%, roughly 10 or 20%. There's the doors in a lot of Richmond homes called tradesman doors. They're the people doors next to garages. A lot of times those are just being forced open or the windows are broken, and that's an easy way in. But the majority of these break-ins, about 80%, are happening by triggering the emergency release latch on garage doors, the little red rope that hangs down. They're actually triggering that by sticking a long hook through either a broken window or a mail slot, or they're cutting holes directly in the garage doors now. And they'll cut a hole or break a window. It makes a noise. They'll run away for 15 minutes and then they'll come right back immediately, sometimes an hour later, sometimes the next day. And they will trigger that garage hook, that garage latch with a long metal hook. So I want to show you a little video here of of what's happening.
Oh, wow.
Breaking into a garage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. The door's open. And it wasn't even that loud.
So that's what is happening every night in our neighborhood. And you can see in the video, they went through the top of the gap at the top of the garage in our neighborhood, they're doing it any means they can get through the garage door, windows, mail slots, drilling holes in the door. So we know that it's happening because it's really easy to do and it's high payoff. They get in, they can get access to your garage, maybe even to your home. We also know that they're getting more aggressive and their techniques are getting more aggressive, using drills and torches to cut through doors. They're even hitting homes that are under construction or buildings that are under construction now and stealing tools and appliances, things like that. So I think we all know, if you don't, brazenness is way up. So it's happening in the daylight now. Cameras, lights, no longer a deterrent. The packages and the violent crime also much more brazen right now. So SFPD, what are they doing? Kind of where they stand. Well, they're trying their best, but if I were to summarize it in a word, they're outnumbered. They're understaffed to do regular patrols. So regular patrols aren't happening. They have had some plainclothes operations, but they've had very limited success of putting unmarked officers out at night. They can only do it occasionally. And I think there was one arrest a couple months ago, but it's not very successful. We've got a brand new captain at the Richmond station starting next week. Hopefully we get somebody who, can help us, come up with creative ways to help solve this issue. But I think my point in mentioning that is that it's a time of transition in the department. There's discombobulation, there's discontinuity, and that's just going to cause, probably, lack of focus until they get kind of up to speed. So we hope to leverage. There's a, whether I don't know if you're aware, there's the 10 or 12 member of what's called CPAB, the Community Police Advisory Board, of which I'm a member. Several folks on this call, I think, are members as well. And their job is to be community liaisons between the neighborhood and the police station. They do things like neighborhood night out. And the reason I mention them is I think they're a resource for us. They may be able to help fund some of our efforts of what we want to do. They can follow arrests from some of these cases. We can follow the court cases. They really are linked to the police. So I just wanted to mention them. I also want to mention SF Safe. SF Safe is the official kind of neighborhood community arm of SFPD for the city. And they run the Neighborhood Watch program, which I'll talk about in a second. So they had a very robust program. It's kind of stalled under the pandemic, for lack of a better word. I've been in touch with the director, and we're seeing what they can offer us, but the city just moves slowly. That's, I think, the only thing I wanted to say here about SF Safe. So we'll talk about more of that in a second. So those are some of the bad news of things we know. But here's what we also know. We also know that preventative measures work. Several neighbors on this call can attest that securing their emergency latch saved them from a burglary. Emergency latch, deadbolts, alarms, blocking mail slots, these things work. So here's a couple of examples of the things that actually stop these burglaries. The police actually made 3 arrests last week. So great news. How did they do it? They did it, and I talked to two of the victims actually, and got their detailed stories of how the police caught these guys. And it really had to do with neighbors being assertive and aggressive, calling the police immediately, knowing what to look for. Security camera footage actually played a huge role in actually apprehending at least one of these perpetrators. So the idea of having security cameras and knowing where they are, it definitely helps. It's a little bit of a longer game, but it helps. So there is actually, some good news here. Again, the other piece of good news is we've got 300 neighbors who want to take action, hopefully more. So speaking of this good news, I want to show you one other thing. So this is a neighbor of mine captured this. It's a little bit edited, but here is actual footage of one of these perpetrators notice he's looking in the garage vents to look in the garage. He sees a couple bikes, so he knows this is a garage worth breaking in. You'll notice how deterred he is by the lights that are on, the bright lights and the camera, not at all. So let's see if the video, he comes back, takes a little hammer, breaks a small hole in the window, leaves for 5 minutes, comes back again. He's got a long car antenna or metal rod with a hook on the end. He walks away because his lookout made a noise, so he walked away for a minute. Reaches in, he's trying to get that emergency latch, which is right next to the garage door, by the way, when it's closed. So it's not hard to do, as you saw in the other video. He tries, reaches in. This neighbor on next door saw all of our posts about how to secure. He tries to lift the door, he can't do it. So this neighbor wrapped a bunch of duct tape around their emergency latch and totally prevented that guy from getting into their garage, where they had 5, very expensive bikes, their kids' bikes. They all would have been gone. So just wanted to share that video. If you haven't seen that yet, it's dramatic. And that's happening every night in our neighborhood. Okay, so hopefully that's scaring everybody. So okay, so what's the plan? What am I proposing? So I'm proposing a 3-part plan. It's like I said, it's not perfect, but I think it's good enough. So number 1, I'd like to get the word out. Let's quickly launch a Richmond district-wide awareness campaign, letting people know what's happening and how to protect their homes. Number 2, content. They can go to a website once they find out, a place where we can list, and provide our collective wealth of how-tos, lists of resources, devices, tools that can help people. Let's connect neighbors to actual resources. Let's say, here's who you can call if you want to do these things. Let's lower the barriers to action. So, and then third, let's facilitate more neighborhood watch groups. We know that these groups have limited lifespans and utility, but right now, connecting more neighbors would be absolutely invaluable and potentially help much more, with more than just break-ins. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into each part of this plan. Hopefully that will spark some ideas, and then I'll share how each of you can help specifically. So number 1, let's organize an awareness campaign. Let's get something that's large enough and diverse enough to blanket the neighborhood and bold enough to get people's attention. The Richmond station, the police station's newsletter, they have a newsletter. It's not enough. Next door, it's not enough. Not enough people see that. People are busy living their lives, trying to survive the pandemic. So we need something bigger. We need to, send people to a website where they can get content. Maybe we distribute flyers to the neighborhood in multiple languages. Traditional print media, the Richmond Review, the Marina Times, of course, online, which is where most people are these days, next door, of course, Facebook, Instagram. And then let's tap as many of groups, clubs, merchants associations, book clubs, whatever clubs and groups are out there, PTAs, thank you for that comment. So that we can tap their networks, get their member list, or get into their newsletter with links to our content. Hey, here's where you go. You look at this, and that's how you figure out how to secure your home. Local businesses. Maybe we make posters. We hang them in coffee shops. We hang them in bike shops, since that's what they appear to be after. Restaurants, things like that. So an awareness campaign to get the word out. That's what I'm thinking. So number 2, content. So most of this would then belong on the website, but it's also for word of mouth. So first, how to. Let's share how the break-ins are occurring, like I just did, and then how to protect your homes, how to protect garages, how to protect gates. Gates are, I'm hearing more and more that people's gates are being broken into. let's provide lists of equipment and devices and tools. I've got a little tool right here. This is a little plastic device that covers the garage emergency latch for some garage models. It's $20, totally worth it if it fits your garage. And let's list the costs out also to kind of remove a barrier for people to act. Oh, it's going to cost me thousands of dollars. No, it's not. And so maybe we even make a few how-to videos. I published a little guide on Medium, and it started to get some traction. It just listed out tips, and lots of people were drawn to it, but not enough people are drawn to it. So not only how to protect your garage, but who. So over here, who can help? Let's lead people directly to the resources that they need. So the people who can physically help secure people's homes, security experts, installers, garage door companies. There's somebody who I think is on this call who owns a local garage door installation company. He's willing to help in his network. Handy people who can help, nearby neighbors, to come by and inspect your house or your apartment so that they could suggest what you might do. I could probably list 5 people on this call who are handy enough to install a garage door deadbolt. So if I can list 5, everyone else on this call can probably list 5 as well. So one neighbor, I don't know if he's on the call or not, he's been trying to make an effective little side hustle, a little business out of installing garage deadbolts. And to that I say, hooray, good for you. He's not in it for the money. He's trying to teach his teenage kids the values of helping neighbors and then maybe a little entrepreneurship. So let's list their contact information on our site. So make it easy for people to find people who can help. If you can do it yourself, great. But if you can't, which I think is most people, let's help them. So that's part 2. Okay, part 3, and I saw a couple comments already about Neighborhood Watch. So Neighborhood Watch groups, I think, just a couple points here on how they can help. Obviously, they're a central way to share information. Connect disconnected or isolated neighbors. Create text or phone chains. Hey, I saw something. Did you see something? Security cameras. Who's got the footage of what happened on our street last night? The police are looking for it. I know that, these 4 or 5 people have cameras. Let's go talk to them. So let's build connective tissue and ID the people who maybe they need help. Maybe they're seniors or disabled folks on a block that, so let's know that. And then let's also figure out the people on the block who are handy and who can help, who's a plumber, who might be a nurse. I mean, there's other benefits to it as well. And then sharing when and how to report suspicious behaviors. Knowing who to call if you see something, or if you're a victim or you're a witness, just knowing who to call and talking about it can, of course, reduce barriers to reporting incidents. So just earlier today, I was talking to the spouse of a Richmond Station lieutenant, and she said, and it stuck in my head. She said, I know every car that parks on my street. I know all my neighbors, and when I see something that's not quite right, I take a closer look. And that's what Neighborhood Watch is all about. So the next question is, okay, how do we form Neighborhood Watch? And somebody commented here that I think that they signed up and they're 2 months out. So SF Safe is the official Neighborhood Watch program of the city and of SFPD. I looked into it like a year or 2 ago, and it was fairly robust. It was complicated. There were a lot of requirements. And right now they're understaffed, they're backlogged. I inquired if they could do kind of a pandemic version of Neighborhood Watch to quickly accelerate, and they unequivocally said, no, we cannot. So I'm going to propose, how about just a DIY version? There's no reason it has to be officially sanctioned. If we can find a leader on a block who has mild organization skills, and then empower them with 4 or 5 ideas of what to do, get some names, get some phone numbers, have a meeting virtual or out in somebody's driveway, then they now have a Neighborhood Watch program. So to do it kind of a DIY, I think is the only way we're going to do this fast. The city is not going to be fast with us. And eventually, once they're established, then let's have them each apply go through the SF Safe program. They get this nifty little sign, which frankly probably doesn't deter any crime, but that's really what you get when you go through the official SF Safe program. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm saying it's not going to happen fast. So let's do it on our own. There were 150 neighbors here who want to do it. So let's just do it. Okay. So the real benefit, of course, of Neighborhood Watch is building the connective tissue in the community. It's not from getting a sign. So, okay. So these are the three parts of the plan that I'd like to get everybody's help for us to execute. What are we not doing? And I know everybody has, a lot of ranges of opinions. We're not addressing the uptick in violent crime. We're not talking about package theft, although a Neighborhood Watch program could certainly help with that. We're not talking about, We're not talking about either neighbor or private patrols. It's just too divisive and it's apt to go sideways in one way or another. And it's more important that we connect neighbors and help them directly. And so that's where I'd like to spend, my time and this group's time. There is a legitimate case to be made about increasing police patrols and perhaps for private patrols as well, but that's simply not part of this plan or part of this organization or this group of neighbors. So homelessness, this specific burglary crime wave, I can say is not caused by the increases in homeless people in our neighborhood. So they're not 100% related here. Walgreens, shoplifting, open air drug use, needles, defecation, all that other stuff, that come along with substance, addiction issues. They're real, but it's not what we're trying to address here. We're also not trying to recall the district attorney. There's a lot of energy and a lot of buzz around that, but that's not what this group is going to do. And I know there's a lot of opinions this way or that way, which really leads me to point number 4 here, which I was hesitant to include. But a lot of people were interested in it because I think it's a very easy lift. And that was letter writing, phone calls, and putting pressure on public officials. So I'm a little skeptical about the effectiveness of that, whether it's the mayor, the DA, supervisors, police chief. Public safety shouldn't be political, but unfortunately it's very political. And I don't want to make this effort political. Personally, like I said, I'd rather focus on taking action and helping neighbors directly instead of asking city officials to start debating and decide whether they can help based on the political wins. So political pressure can be effective, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to want to make that point. If it's focused, perhaps pressing, increased police patrols. Unfortunately, the political winds are not really blowing in the direction of more police patrols at the moment. But you could also make a case that we need to better inform our city leaders about what's happening, and that's totally legit. So our new supervisor, Connie Chan, hasn't really engaged in the topic or expressed a lot. She's expressed very little actually in the way of public safety as a priority until this week, when there's been this uptick in elderly Asian violent attacks in the past few days. She's made some noise about that. In my opinion, burglary not really on her priority list, nor will it really be. So I would ask what pressuring her really is going to bring us, on this plan. In her first, she was in a community meeting with the police captain recently, and she flat out just said that she's not an expert in public safety, and she's going to rely entirely on the district captain for everything public safety related. And so that said, I would welcome, her and her office's ideas, the voice of her pulpit. Who knows, maybe 500 letters written to her saying, go do this might help get that done. But I'm skeptical. So on the flip side, in District 2 in the Marina, Supervisor Catherine Stephanie, who shares a police district corner with us, she and her office kind of the flip, clearly and loudly recognizing and prioritizing public safety. And her office contacted me about this effort and these neighbors, and wants to help, wants to see how they can do this kind of thing in District 2, in the Marina in Pacific Heights. She's been kind of a wealth of creative, practical ideas in her district. and I'll take any help that a supervisor wants to give us. So, but I really just kind of question, you know, trying to convince a city leader that this is important to her constituents, but I can be convinced otherwise. So, you know, I think in the feedback form, and I can see in some of the comments here, folks are like, the supervisor should be helping us. Like, I don't disagree, but we'll have to figure out what we want to do here. So, okay. So moving on, how can you help? Sorry, we're really running late here. Sorry, I didn't know it would take this long. So there's 5 ways you can help. So the first is, I need 5 to 10 or a dozen people to help us devise materials and messaging for this awareness campaign. 56 of you responded that you had experience with this. I need a digital campaign expert, somebody. So there's got to be somebody in this call. If not, we can find one. A graphic and maybe a marketing copywriter, somebody that can help us, come up with a concise message, maybe make some flyers. Some language folks, somebody on this call who knows Russian, knows Chinese, knows Spanish, who can help us put these flyers in multiple languages. We need 2 people to help us gather networking ideas, like who knows what the networks are, whether they're senior networks or whether they're clubs or neighborhood planning associations. I want 2 people to help us compile those to help so we can spread the word faster. We need somebody to print flyers. We need somebody to print signs, and then I'm going to recruit everybody to distribute flyers, of course. So that's on the campaign messaging. We needed about 5 or 10 people to help with that. I need 1 or 2 experts to help build and maintain a simple website with content. So really, what's this? This is, you'll get a flyer and it'll say, go to this website, which is where we'll have most of our content and our information. Maybe it is simple, maybe it's complicated, maybe you can ask questions on it. I'm not sure, but I need somebody's help to do that. So looking for somebody who's done it before. Third, need maybe 2 or 3 people who can build the list of installer resources, who can build a list of neighbors who are handy, and maybe even help lead a little how-to session of, hey, here's 5 or 6 tips that you can talk to your neighbors, maybe do like a little workshop. So make a list of handy neighbors, contractors, security experts, tap their networks as well. I'd like to get this group going. I'd like to meet next week and start getting that list into a website. So, and then, next, I'd like to ask, who among you wants to actually physically help your neighbors? Be the point of contact and a resource, they can knock on your door, they can call you, they can email you. You can go take a look at their garage, at their doors, and then actually say, recommend, hey, maybe you could do this, this, or that, to actually physically help them secure their home. So, and then lastly, is, who wants to spearhead a neighborhood watch? I know some of you are doing this as we speak. If it's not you, who's a good candidate on your block? Who's that outspoken person who knows all the neighbors on your block who might be interested? Please let's get their name and their contact information. Let's start now. Let's gather names and contact information of neighbors, and then so we'll set up a separate meeting. I'm hoping next week that we will actually talk specifically about what does a DIY neighborhood watch look like. Then there's 2 more things I want to mention how you can help. Spreading the word with your neighbors. I think everybody is just going to do that. Everyone should just do that. Talk, email, share our website, share our content with the people and your neighbors. And then lastly, funding. I don't see this as being an overly expensive exercise. We may be able to tap the Community Police Advisory Board for their small budget for some printing, but we're not really buying materials or supplies. Neighbors are going to have to, get their own supplies, and residents will incur their own costs. So, any funds we spend really will be out of our own pockets. Okay, so that's where we need help, and hopefully those 5 ways resonate. And as you heard them, you thought, oh, that's how I could help. I could do that. I could commit to that. So, so next steps. I'm going to put this link again in the chat. 1 second, bear with me. This is where you can sign up. You go, it's just a Google form. You answer some questions. You can put in as much information as you'd like to do, and as much as you want to help. So go to this site, sign up, add your ideas. If you've got, I know you all have way more ideas than I do. Volunteer for some of these roles. If you know of other platforms or avenues or groups, that's the place to put it. If you know of a neighborhood resource who could help us, somebody who has a printing shop, could print signs, something like that, please share it there. Or if you know of a neighborhood organization that we could tap, that's the place I'd like you to share it. So email is going to be my primary source of communication. If you go to that website to submit things, you'll also get added to our email list. So that's my plan. That's what I'd like to do. That's what I'd like to ask for your help to do. And with that, I'd like to just open it up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing so I can look at all your faces. So let's see here. If you've got a question, please either raise your hand or put it in the chat and I can unmute you. So I see some hands up, so I'm going to go to Wendy. 1 second. Sorry, I'm all thumbs here. Put it over here. Wendy Capone. Can you, are you unmuted, Wendy?
Yeah, it's my wife's name.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's okay. She was listening. No, it's all good stuff. I was just listening. I came in a little late, but yeah, if you need somebody, it's funny, the neighborhood search, few of my neighbors on my block, we've discussed it, and my house, I have a video, and we gave it to a couple of policemen that we know, and they distributed it. And I think my son said that video, he gave it to one of the inspectors that was investigating this. And I think, I don't know, I don't want to say that video helped capture the guy or not, but I have this video. They came 3 times because we had a bike. We didn't know that Santa Cruz were expensive. My son bought it used and the damn thing's hanging there. And I go, why do they keep coming back to our house? But anyway, yeah, so it was a scary situation. And you got a lot of good information. Keep the politics out of it. We know we need help, and from them as well, and police help. But yeah, I think you're saying good stuff, and I'm just going to continue to listen. Okay. And by the way, we'll try to do something here. On our block as a
great.
captain.
That's all we can ask. Thanks so much. Okay, Ginger Ashworth. You have to unmute yourself. Ginger, can you unmute?
There we go. Sorry about that.
Sure,
Okay.
Ginger, what's your question?
So first, I want to thank you for doing this.
You're
and
welcome.
my question is your outline of tonight's discussion accessible? It's not in the chat format.
Yeah, I will share. I will share out a link to the all of the stuff we did. I will email it out to everybody.
Thank you, because I've been writing it down, but I've also asked.
Oh, I should have said, don't write it down. Yeah, sorry about that.
I want to give it to my neighbors. I'm in a neighborhood safe block, and we set this up a few years ago, so everyone needs to get a copy of what you're doing tonight.
That's the answer. Give it to your neighbors. Thanks, Ginger.
Okay.
Doug Brewster.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for doing this, Mark.
Sure.
I am new to the Richmond, but not new to San Francisco. Been in the city for 12 years. But I guess I think the first step for me is like getting to know my neighbors. So I moved into the neighborhood like a month ago. what do you suggest the best way to meet people? Is it like going and knocking on doors, or, we're like stuck inside because of the pandemic, right? But what do you suggest for kind of that first step of meeting people and then getting contact information?
I mean, it's the pandemic, so knocking on doors is a little tough. But there's nothing quite like that, face to face, if you can do it safely. Of, hey, I just moved in, I wanted to meet my neighbors. I hear that neighborhood watch groups are helpful, things like that. There's a lot. I guess, yeah, probably knocking on doors is probably the best way to do it. So. But welcome to the neighborhood, Doug. I appreciate that. All right. Other questions? Anyone else? It's actually gonna unmute. You can unmute yourself if you'd like to. If you want to just throw a question out.
Hey, I can jump in on that really quick, Mark. I just went through that with my neighborhood, and literally just walking the dogs and saying hi to everybody was a big start. And just seeing people up and down the block. We started with a small email list, asked people to reach out to the neighbors that they knew. And if, as Shirley, who is on this video next to me, knows, like, we just waved everybody down and said, hey, we're starting this thing. And we've got almost everybody on our block signed up. It wasn't that hard to do. People are definitely interested in sharing this. And so this is good stuff, Mark. And I'll be looking forward to helping you get this thing moving.
Yeah, thanks, Max. And for Neighborhood Watch, which feels very tangible, do you have like a central leader on your block, Max, or a couple people?
Well, I kind of jumped in and took the lead on it.
Great.
We created a Google Doc that just shared everybody's, which is great now because we got everyone's name, everyone's address, cell phones of everyone on the block, make and model of cars even. So
wow.
At the worst case scenario, we can at least help each other not get a ticket for street cleaning. But the best case scenario is now I have everyone's name on the block. It's actually really nice. And so it's been actually a really nice exercise.
Great, thanks, Max. I think you're spot on there. Just building that connective tissue. Anybody else? You're welcome to throw a question out.
Yeah, Mark, here.
Okay,
Andrew?
Yeah, I was going to say that that what you're doing for the short term is absolutely fabulous, but there's a long-term benefit as well. In case, God forbid, there's something major like an earthquake, you'll have we'll have an entire system already in place and that can move and connect much more easily had we not done this.
Yeah, you got it. I'm a safety nerd myself. I happen to know where the doctors and the nurses on my block live, and that's invaluable, as well as the plumbers. That's also important information. So thank you, Andrew. You're exactly right.
Hey, Mark,
like
this
to-
is Ken.
Okay, never mind.
Ken, so you mentioned earlier about SF Safe, and you and I have talked about this, but I'm probably getting 3 emails a day from people in this neighborhood asking about installing Sherlocks.
Yeah.
And I can't get any more of them because they're sold out. And so I redirect people to this SF Safe, and whoever's answering the phone over at SF Safe says, we don't have any Sherlocks. And
yeah,
and I don't know how to solve this problem.
Yeah, I wish I did. I wish I knew as well. So for those who don't know, so Ken is that neighbor who kind of took it on himself to say, I'm going to make a little side hustle business out of this, and I'm going to help neighbors. I'm handy enough, and there's these devices called Sherlocks, which are deadbolts, that kind of aftermarket deadbolts you can install, and they work with an automatic garage door opener. The key thing is they're automatic, right? Like you just push your button and opens or closes, and the lock engages or disengages. And so we mentioned this to SF Safe, and they went out and they bought 100 or 150 of these, saying they were going to buy them all, 200, and then distribute them to neighbors. I emailed them last night. I said, hey, where are the locks? And they're like, oh, they haven't shown up yet. So it's kind of mystery black hole. And so kind of blowing a little bit of my confidence in SF Safe. I'm guessing that they're super backlogged. And I agree, Ken, it puts you kind of out of business here. There probably are other devices and other things that we could look into. But they bought all 200 that exist in the country. So they're gone. So I'm going to continue to press SF Safe to see if we can get them. And somebody's saying that they have a new model. So anyway, so great question, Ken. I think we just, continue to stay on SF Safe and try to get the equipment into people's hands. So you were a great resource that was doing that. Unfortunately, the city stepped in and slowed it down.
All right,
I have
thanks.
another thing I'd like to add when he's
Sure.
done.
Go ahead,
Are you-
Ginger.
Okay, there's a city organization that provides permits and funding for block parties. And because we're in a pandemic, there haven't been a lot of block parties, but they're still an organization. They still have offices somewhere in San Francisco. So as soon as we change the tier, I guess when we get to red or orange, we might be able to have meetings with the whole block attending. And the block party people, they give you permits, they pay for it to block off the street just through traffic. They put the barriers at the corners.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
give you, you don't have to pay the $400 block party permit. They cover it all. And I can, I'll look up whoever they are and give you their email address.
No, please do. Please do. That's great.
They're really helpful. They helped us every year until the pandemic.
A couple other great chat things. When are we going to start planning sub meetings? I'd like to start them next week. So go to that website, sign up for what you'd like to do, so I know to include you in the appropriate meetings. Let's see here. I see a hand, a question.
Yeah, Mark, this is Matt Luger. Thank
ahead,
you so
Matt.
much for doing all this. It's good to meet you and see everybody's faces here. I clicked on the link. Is this, I think I already filled this out a week or two ago when registering for joining this session. Is this the same link that you have?
No, this is a different link. The questions are different. The questions are which group would you like to help with?
Cool. Okay, perfect.
Things like that. Nope. Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Hiroshi, do you have a question?
I had a question regarding that sleeve that you're talking about, the sleeve that covers the
This thing?
the emergency release.
Yeah.
Does that work for all different brands of garage door openers?
Yes and no. So this is exactly the type of information that we want to get out there. So the one I have on mine works with, and I'm not a garage person, but one of the local garage people has now educated me, works with LiftMaster, Chamberlain, one or two others, but it doesn't work with Genie. So that brand. So, but there's another device that's like $40 or $50 available on Amazon that you can get that does the same thing, that prevents them from pulling that latch. So there's a couple of them out there. So what I'd like to do is to get the links out, how to buy these things out to everyone. So just interestingly, this little plastic thing that I have, you couldn't get them. They ran out in the country. So we figured out who actually manufactured them. And it's a woman who lives in Kansas who has a warehouse that has 3,000 of them. And she hasn't sold one in 10 years. And now she's getting 12 orders a day. So from us in San Francisco. So hooray, that's good news.
Hey, Mark,
I don't know if I answered your question, Hiroshi. We'll get you the information of how to order these.
Hey, Mark, Jay here with a question.
Jay.
How you doing? First of all, we're in Laurel Heights, so we're not Richmond residents. We're Richmond adjacent. So we're intruding on your meeting, but I got a quick question. It's very specific. Maybe it's a question for Ken if he's still on the call. We have a roll-up garage door, which we've secured with the slider locks and all that. But I have two neighbors I'm aware of. I know there are more who have, I don't know the right term, but the one-piece door that levers up.
Folds up.
Yeah, I have two very elderly neighbors who have these. I've looked at their doors and I have no idea how to help them secure those doors. I've looked at it online and I can't find an answer. So if anyone
I can probably come over and give you some advice.
That'd be great.
So that's Ken.
Text me, and let me give you my number. Just write it down real quick.
Okay.
408.
Yep.
455.
Yep.
6978. I'm leaving town for the weekend, but I'll be back next week, and I'm happy to
So-
come over and take a look.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Everybody, Ken will be on the list of resources because he's a great guy and he just helps everybody. So thank you, Ken. There's another gentleman who owns
Appreciate
Door Pros, garage door installation company, who lives on 19th, who is looking at the devices that I purchased and kind of to help people figure out what works for them. So I don't know if Jared is on this call or not. I haven't seen him. Anyway, other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. We've got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, this is Candace here. I was just going to add, we had a couple attempted break-ins. Luckily, they didn't get in, but we also think that maybe we were targeted from my husband's Strava account. So if anyone uses Strava, it's kind of like an exercise app. He tracks his bike rides, and
Candace, you're on mute. You cut out there, Candace, and you're on mute. We just heard
sorry,
Strava.
so we think we might have been targeted from Strava. Either if someone looked in our mail slot or watched my husband's Strava ride and saw that he rides a bike and where he parks it in our garage, because we used to live in the marina and then we moved to the Richmond. We didn't realize there wasn't a setting for privacy on our new address. So just letting neighbors know as well to make sure that that's updated would be
That's a great
something
call
to think
out.
about.
That's a great call out, Candace. I know there's, bicycles are the things that are being targeted. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, bicycles, they're a few $100s. Not today, they're not. I just know in the Bay Area's level of these electric bikes, they're worth thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's a target-rich environment. Thank you on Strava. That's a good call out. Other questions?
Yeah, so I have a question in regards to that emergency latch.
Yeah.
If one should secure that by one means or another with wire or with duct tape,
yeah,
do you think that's enough to prevent a garage door being open?
Well, it depends on how strongly, it's secured. That video I showed you where they couldn't get it open, that was just duct tape. They just duct taped the heck out of it, 4 or 5 times wrapping around it. It'll work. The advantage of some of these extra aftermarket devices is that with one of them, at least, you can still pull your emergency release handle if there's an emergency, because that's kind of the point of it, is that you can have another exit from your home in case of emergency. So that's kind of a little known or a little thought about factor of securing these things. People had been using plastic zip ties, and then they're breaking the plastic zip ties. They defeated those. The local hardware store who I've talked to, they're like, use metal zip ties. Each of those is good, but in the event of an emergency, if that's concerning to you, you have to take that into consideration. So, but yes, duct tape has been effective, as well as foil tape. So, all right, I'll take one more question. Anybody else got one?
Just wondering about the device you had. Are you going to send that out?
Yeah, I'll send out that device, actually.
Perfect.
Just how to get it. There's a woman in Kansas who is selling them on
Thank
eBay
you.
now, and you can just email her. Her
Thank
name is
you.
Liz, and she's wonderful. And she's like she's looking to sell 3,000. So if you want to go heavy, she'll sell you a few.
Thanks.
Well, good. Well, all right, everybody. Well, please, if you can't get through to that link to sign up, please share that link with your friends and neighbors to get them to sign up. We'll get some, kind of some small groups together next week. Hopefully we've got some web experts and some marketing experts that can put our heads together. And hopefully you can join me here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you out in the neighborhood soon. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Manu.